And I want to go now to Tal Heinrich. She's a spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and you are obviously here in New York. I know for a bit, Tal. What is the very latest you're able to tell us about the strike?
So this is what the IDF chief of staff just came out and said in his nighttime statements, that it was obviously a very tragic mistake. There was no intention here of harming the aid workers. That was a mistake that followed misidentification during nights, very complex conditions of, in a battle zone. Tragedies do happen during war, but we should make sure that something of this kind will never happen again during this war. This is why the defense minister, the prime minister, as you just heard, they ordered to carry out an investigation. It will be a transparent one. We will share the findings of which I believe it will take a few days or maybe a bit more. And we will share the findings of which with the public and with the aid organizations. You know, these are the good guys, Aaron. This is one of the aid groups that was out there right after the October 7th massacre on the ground, helping Israeli and Palestinian civilians. We extend our condolences to their families, the countries from which they came.
So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has apologized, right? Of course, he called the strike a tragic case of our forces unintentionally hitting innocent people. But as everyone tries to understand this, even in the context of the ongoing investigation, the World Central Kitchen team was coordinating its movements with the IDF so that they would know where they were. The IDF obviously conducts precision targeting. They put out a statement, World Central Kitchen. They said they were traveling in a deconflicted zone in 2 armored cars, and the World Central Kitchen logo is clearly visible. In this context of all of this, and as I mentioned, the precision with which Israel is capable and aims its missiles, longtime Israeli reporter Barak Ravid said this today. Here he is.
I think that I heard a lot of Israeli officials today that were highly frustrated by the fact that somebody in the IDF, most likely a very senior officer, at least a colonel, you need at least a colonel to approve such a strike. So somebody did approve it on a quite high level in the IDF. And there's a lot of frustration that such a thing happened when it's clearly against all the rules of engagement.
So, Tal, in that context, I'm just going to hone in on the word unintentional. In a precision missile environment, which Israel conducts, every strike is intentional, right? You know, you're aiming for something. So there was a precise aim, it would appear, by any measure of rules of engagement for that particular convoy at that particular time, right?
I don't want to jump into conclusions, especially sit here in New York as war is raging in my part of the world, back in Israel, and jump into conclusions, because I think I don't have the exact details of what transpired there, and we will have to wait for the finding of the investigation. But what I can say, and I think it's really important here, is that when we make mistakes, when Israel makes mistakes, even the most tragic ones to admit, and I was here on this program before, and we discussed a different tragic that took place during the past 6 months, in which, our hostages were mistakenly shot at, 3 of our hostages. We take responsibility. We admit to the most painful incidents. So we tell the truth, even when it's the most inconvenient thing to say.
So let me ask you about something that is a painful truth, and that is the fact that tens of thousands of Gazans have been killed since this began, and many of them are innocent people. And we can talk about what the numbers are, but that is a reality on the ground. Just the past few days, Tal, we have all been confronted with these images from Al-Shifa, right, the hospital. And after the 14-day siege that the IDF was conducting, and they say that obviously there were Hamas operatives there, and that's what they were targeting. The hospital's been obliterated. There are bodies everywhere. Obviously, it's no longer functional. You say this is necessary to eradicate Hamas, but I do wonder, when you talk about inconvenient truths, how does Israel justify killing so many innocent people in this?
First, I'm glad that you said that we need to discuss these numbers, because we have to take Hamas's numbers with a huge spoon of salt, not a grain of salt. Because what I can tell you the facts and the truth, according to our assessment and the facts that we have, and that is that we eliminated more than 13,000 Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists. We took out 19 of the Hamas battalions out there. One of the reasons why we have to operate in Rafah, for instance, the southern city in Gaza, is because we need to take out the 4 remaining battalions. We're talking about 7,000, 8,000 terrorists there. So the reason why we have to eradicate Hamas, and you also brought up this point, is because you and I don't want to sit here in 6 months, a year, 2 years, and have this conversation again.
But Tal, aren't we going to be sitting here? Because a lot of the people there that are losing people in their lives are children. And if they survive, they're going to grow up. And what are they going to think about Israel? What are they going to do? I mean, how can you all actually say you're eradicating terrorism and eradicating Hamas in the context of what's actually happening in Gaza?
Well, we'll have to look at, a historical example. Germany, after World War II, de-radicalized. And you don't see, Nazism. You have it as an ideology, but not with the grip of a country. This is exactly what we want to do with Hamas. Yes, there will be radicals out there, and you can't root out their ideology, to the extent that we wish. But Israel will have to maintain some overriding security responsibility in Gaza to operate against attempts at resurgence of terrorism in the day after Hamas, and also work on de-radicalization of the Palestinian society, exactly for the reason that you and I don't want to sit here again, and we want to see a better future for Israelis and Palestinians alike.
All right. Well, Tal, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate the conversation, of course, on a very somber day.